This is a Gear Network production.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy, Mr. Perez, and you're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast, brought to you exclusively on Gear Network. Listen in.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode number 66 of the Better Live Than Dead podcast.
That would be episode 66.
I don't know if it took you long to hear me there, if you just didn't grab on, but that was a while. That was a little dead air right there. It's okay, though.
Yeah, my bad. I was looking up the NCAA first official playoff standings. And
don't worry. We'll talk about that in just a minute.
It's kind of distracted. My bad.
Oh, it's okay. As you can hear, Lewis sounds magnificent. First off, I'm Ryan Wolf, at Wolf BLTD on Twitter, on the other end of the Uber conference, finally off a phone on a microphone. Sounding pretty damn fancy. He is Mr. Perez.
What's up, peoples?
At MRLG Perez on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. Now, we got a lot of sports to talk about today, so you know what? I don't even want to wait around. Like, I know we like to chit-chat, whatever. We'll save that for the end of the show. Because, like I said, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. First off, I want to start off with the NCAA, man. What a week. We get news that Virginia Tech head coach Frank Beamer, one of the greater coaches in the history of college football, very successful when Virginia Tech was successful, kind of fallen on harder times lately. He's going to retire. So a very big name, a very big opening. I mean, I'm not sure how prestigious Virginia Tech is these days in terms of having being a big name job. But you know what? Virginia Tech is Virginia Tech. They'll probably get someone really nice to fill that position.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Virginia Tech is one of those colleges that have consistently been up there as far as recruiting and, getting good coaches. So I'm sure they'll have no issues.
And by the way, real quick before we continue, I just want to say if there are any technical difficulties, we apologize in advance. Lewis and I spent about 10 minutes before the podcast started, so right when he got hooked up, we started going. So, like I said, if there's any problems or anything dips in or out, just bear with us. We'll get through it. And if it's super bad, we'll fix it for next time. But right now, not only are you listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast, but you're listening to kind of like a science experiment because we don't really know how this is going to work. But the best way to figure it out is just to make it happen.
That's a true story.
Now
that's what we're doing.
Moving on to the big story of the week in almost all the sports, Duke Miami. 8 laterals to finish the game. It was like the band on the field play, like the Music City Miracle. Miami beats Duke, but here's the thing. Quickly, not even hours, it was seconds. Not even minutes, it was seconds after the game. Some photos and some videos popped up on the internet showing multiple offenses of illegal blocks in the back. One of the Miami Hurricane players was tackled while the ball was still in his hand. He was down by contact. The refs let it go. The referees were suspended following the game. Miami still gets the victory, which sucks for Duke University, but, sometimes the ball just bounces your way, and sometimes the referees actually referee.
Yeah, it was actually a crazy finish, and I feel that in the heat of the moment in the finish is why they didn't call any of those plays, any of those offenses.
Well, it's fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me because you let it go, and then you go review it, but I don't even know if they reviewed it or if they just said game over, but
right.
It was blatantly obvious to me.
You know what? Hey, Ryan, let's put this on a pause real quick. I'm going to go grab my headphones. That way the mic's not picking up you speaking through my actual tablet speakers.
How long is it going to take you to grab your headphones, you think?
2 minutes.
I can sit here and talk for 2 minutes.
All right, it's going to take me like 30 seconds.
That's fine. You just let me know when you're back.
All right, right back.
But like I said, the interesting thing about this game is that it was highly improbable back and forth, and the crazy part about it was Miami ended up getting pushed back, I believe, to almost their own goal line, and somehow managed, to go 95 yards in, again, super illegal in terms of blocks in the back, guys getting taken off plays with just downright rule-breaking plays in terms of the blocks, and then, like I said, the referees are just absolute garbage, which you don't expect in college football. But it's good to see the ACC lay the hammer quick. Oh, excuse me. This is what happens when we record a podcast late at night. I'm really tired. I mean, it's only 10 o'clock at night at time of recording of the podcast, but I'm very tired. But it's good to see the ACC lay down the hammer quick and firm, and let these referees know that, you know, their crappy refereeing is not going to be what defines the ACC. And I'm not even sure if Lewis is back yet. I just stopped talking to let Lewis talk and throw some insight in there, but I'm not even sure if he's back yet. Okay,
I'm about
you're
to
back?
plug my headphones in.
All right, if this blows things up, I'm going to be angry. It's okay, though. I can hear it. Are you in? Is it in?
Plug my
Is it in?
headphones in, and this microphone fell over.
That was that noise.
Not sure how that happened.
Well, you're back now, so that's good.
All right, this should be.
Are you all set to go?
Yeah, this should be a lot better.
Learning on the fly. Moving over to the first NCAA playoff rankings, you have Clemson, LSU, Ohio State, and Alabama. Any of those surprise you at this point, Lewis?
No, I would say I'm not surprised by the rankings. What I am surprised is that they have Ohio State number 3, because Ohio State has been number 1 in the nation the entire season. So I'd like to know what they see making them number 3 as opposed to a top rank.
Maybe they just aren't satisfied with how Ohio State's played. Like maybe Ohio State has not played as. Oh, excuse me, I keep yawning. Maybe Ohio State has not played as impressively as the college football ranking system has wanted them to, and this is not necessarily it's a slight at them, but it's more or less, you know, if you want to get the better ranking, you got to kick it up the next gear. And we did see this week too that Ohio State quarterback J.T. Barrett was suspended following a DUI arrest. So things don't get any easier for Ohio State. So we'll see how they respond. Not only to the DUI arrest, but to the shot in the rankings.
Right. I'm also surprised that Alabama's number 4. Not that they're obviously a very dominant team, but being number 4 at 7-1, when you have Baylor at 7-0, you have Michigan State at 8-0.
I think it's just the SEC effect. I really do.
Probably. Because, you got a whole bunch of unranked teams. TCU is 8-0. Iowa's 8-0. Memphis is 8-0. Oklahoma State 8-0.
There's still time. There's still time for stuff to change. But like I said, I really do believe it's the SEC effect, and they're Alabama, so they're going to get the benefit of the doubt.
No, that's a very true story. That is a very true story. Alabama always gets the benefit of the doubt.
I want to move over to the NBA now, real quick. The season started. We don't talk a lot of basketball, and we're going to try to change that as the year goes on. Maybe get some guys on and talk basketball. But San Antonio, the Spurs have set an NBA record. Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili become the winningest trio in the history of the NBA. They recorded their 541st regular season victory, passing the Boston Celtics, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish, who had 540 wins. An absolutely incredible mark for an absolutely incredible franchise who has done it for the past decade and a half. So another feather in the cap of the San Antonio Spurs for sure.
Absolutely. They've been extremely consistent throughout the years. And they're one of those teams that, if you go back to the 90s, you take a look at like the teams that Michael Jordan played on. If you look at the teams that like Larry Bird was on with the Boston Celtics, Magic Johnson with the Los Angeles Lakers, those teams won a ton of games. And obviously the Bulls, they won 6 championships. Tim Duncan and those guys, they've got 5,
and they've pretty much have done it all together. It's extremely impressive. And I don't even like the San Antonio Spurs, but I have to give them their props. What they've done is amazing.
Well, that's the one thing we saw with them winning the championship recently, is that it's not just like they had a good stretch for a couple of years and they've been good. It's like what the Patriots have done in the National Football League. They've won throughout a long span of – they've not only been good throughout a long span of time, but they've won more than one championship through over a long period of time, which is as impressive as anything.
Yeah, the main difference is, they've done it without the controversy like the Patriots have.
Well, it's a different sport, too. I mean, football's a burning pile of baby diapers.
Patriots. That's all. Just taking a little dig at the Patriots.
Hey, you're fine. Like I said, the National Football League to me is just a burning pile of baby diapers.
Yeah, well, I still like it. So
okay. National Hockey League, the Arizona Coyotes are said to be working on a new arena deal in the Valley, not in Glendale, which is not a surprise. There's rumors that they could move to Phoenix for a season to play in their old arena, which I believe is Talking Stick Arena or something of that nature. They would move there for a year or two until a new arena gets built. There's rumors that they could be building an arena with Arizona State's college team, which has moved to D1, or they could get a new arena with the Phoenix Coyote or the Phoenix Suns. I apologize, but excuse me. Excuse me. That's what I was waiting for. That hiccup burp that I had there.
You feel better now?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no problems at all. I get in the podcast and I start yawning and hiccup burping. So whatever, it adds character to the podcast.
Yes, that's right. There you go.
According to this report, the Coyotes have hired a quote unquote arena consultant to help them figure out a new place for them to play. But it doesn't sound like they're going to be playing in Glendale for much longer. And do you blame them? The lease agreement they had, which was good for the Coyotes, bad for Glendale, was canceled and became a year-to-year deal. And it doesn't seem like the Coyotes are long for Glendale, but they do want to stay in Arizona. So, for their sake, hopefully they get it figured out, because, the owners clearly want to make it work in Glendale. But if they don't, there's a brand new arena in Quebec City that's waiting for a hockey team, and there's rumors of a hockey arena that wants to be built in Seattle. So, I mean, if they don't want them, someone else will take them. For sure.
Seattle would be a cool town to have a hockey team in. You can have.
Well, that's a place that they want to, that Gary Bettman wants to get working on a National Hockey League franchise, just because of the natural rivalry it would be with Vancouver, because Vancouver is super close. That's why a lot of people were talking when the Coyotes potentially moved a couple years ago. Portland was on the map. The owner of the Portland Trailblazers almost bought the Coyotes, which if they had Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, that would have been really kind of like Rochester and Syracuse in terms of you have the highway that separates you guys, but it's very close. To be a great rivalry, a lot of great hockey being played in a great atmosphere. But I think if there's one place that hasn't had hockey that I would want to see get hockey, it's probably Seattle. Because, I mean, at this point, Quebec City would be cool to see the Nordiques back in Quebec City, and we're going to get hockey in Las Vegas. Probably in the next couple of months, I'm assuming we're going to hear that. But for a place that has not had a hockey team that deserves a hockey team, I think probably Seattle at this point.
It'd be nice. It would definitely be nice.
One last thing before we move out of the National Hockey League. Big breaking news, literally and figuratively, on Wednesday night. Edmonton rookie forward Connor McDavid out long-term with a fractured left collarbone. He went really hard into the boards and did not look good from the hit. And clearly now afterwards we find out he fractured his clavicle. Upwards, I think, of 12 weeks are the initial just you break your collarbone, here's 12 weeks of recovery, see what happens. But the biggest part about it was he had 12 points, 5 goals, 7 assists in 13 games, so he was certainly playing very, very, very well in his brief time in the National Hockey League, but obviously now he's going to be on the shelf for a while, so it'll be interesting to see how not only the National Hockey League adjusts, but how the Edmonton Oilers adjust, but how the National Hockey League adjusts to the Edmonton Oilers. So they're a team that's still trying to find their identity, especially with a new GM, a new head coach. They're going in the right direction, but they're still searching for an identity.
Yeah, I hope they find it. I mean, they got some young talent. Hey, did you hear them interview the rookie on the Sabres? What's his last name? Eichel?
Jack Eichel.
They asked about the rookie that got hurt and his thoughts, and it was a very non-riveting interview. It was kind of a stupid question. I almost felt bad for Eichel.
Well, the problem is, and Twitter's been a buzz with it all day today, or all day Wednesday. Yeah, we found the Eichel news out. The Eichel news happened Tuesday. We found out Wednesday it was a broken collarbone. I do apologize for the error in reporting there. But yeah, there's been a lot of garbage on the internet today because some people think you should ask Eichel, some people think you shouldn't ask Eichel. But you have to remember, until they're both out of the league or one's out of the league, it's going to be Eichel, what do you think about McDavid? McDavid, what do you think about Eichel? Hey, Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel had a highlight reel goal. Did you see it? Hey, Jack Eichel, Connor McDavid broke his collarbone. Did you see it? Tell me what you think about it, because that's news. In this day and age, that is a news story.
Yeah, I just thought it was. I just thought it was a silly question to ask, and obviously another high profile rookie. I mean, what's he going to say? Oh, that's too bad.
I mean, sometimes you ask a dumb question. Well, sometimes you ask the dumb question and you get a pile of gold nugget in form of a wonderful quote. Yeah, but
right. Didn't happen this time.
It's tough. It's tough because people get annoyed that it's always, you ask Eichel a question and McDavid is always lingering in the questions. You ask McDavid a question, Eichel's always lingering. You just want to talk about hockey, but it's the elephant in the room almost. You have to say something. You have to say, okay, we asked you everything. What do you think about it? Tell us what you think so we can just get this over with.
Yeah, fortunately, but like I said, I almost felt bad for Eichel because he was like, well, it's a physical sport.
And for the record, I didn't hear the exact quote, but I just saw the backlash on Twitter, and I figured it was a dumb enough thing in the first place. But
yeah, no, I felt bad for the guy.
I want to move over to the NASCAR now. I know this is not really up your alley, Lewis, but I know you did see what happened.
I did.
Matt Kenseth intentionally wrecks Joey Logano, chase contender Joey Logano, after Logano did the same thing to Kenseth earlier in the season. So payback, NASCAR, they let each other police each other. They let their drivers police each other on the racetrack, which, for better or for worse. So it looks like right now Logano is out of the chase. He has a couple races to get back in.
Right.
Bless you, by the the
but it was kind of like a yawn hiccup type of thing. I don't know what
it sounded like a sneeze with the way your microphone cut out. But
yeah, sorry.
It's okay. Ken suspended 2 races now. First off, what's your take on Matt Kenseth policing payback when Logano was likely to win that race? He had the best car that day. He was leading the most laps, and then Kenseth turned right into him and took him into the wall.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, you see these guys sometimes, and they get in accidents, and normally when it's intentional, they're very good at hiding it. Like we accidentally tapped the back bumper, or we accidentally drove into the side of him when we were next to him. That wasn't this. Like, he legit just drove straight into the dude's car and pushed him into the wall. Like, it was very obvious. And if NASCAR is going to let these guys police themselves, you're going to have situations like that. I just think he could have done it a little more subtly. Because that was like
he did say after the race or during the race, whenever he was done after that, he said that he just lost the right front and he just couldn't turn the car, which, I mean, logically thinking that can happen, but you knew Matt Kenseth. Like it's funny because I was listening to some audio from other drivers, and a lot of them were excited about it. I mean, a lot of them were, that's great for him. Yeah, I'm sure he'll get a lot of fans from it. Jimmy Johnson said he purposely parked his car sideways in the backstretch so he could watch it on the Jumbotron. And I know Casey Kane's crew chief said it was ridiculous that it happened, blah, 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 blah. And then Casey Kane said, yeah, I know, but how did you not see this coming? I knew this was right. He's like, I'm driving a car, and I knew that was going to happen.
Right.
So, I mean, it's no secret that those two don't like each other, and Kenseth, like I said, Kenseth is out for 2 races, and we'll see where things go from there. Usually something like this happens every couple of years, and it usually dies down quick. I mean, there'll be an increased media presence between those two, and next time something happens, I'm sure we'll get a lot of people in an uproar and all that stuff. But
well, you know what? As long as no one gets hurt, I have no problem with them policing themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's never usually a problem. It's always just tempers flare and all that stuff. And if anything, I mean, honestly, it's probably better for the sport because sometimes NASCAR can be really boring. Right. And if you add in, hey, this guy purposely took that guy out. I mean, Twitter was ablaze. People I follow that don't like NASCAR were talking about it. And that's, I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes if that's what you accomplish, that's what you accomplish. Take it and run with it.
Oh yeah, the footage of them going at each other in the pits after the race was pretty cool too.
That's always fun. Because it's grown men who don't know how to fight trying to fight.
That's a true story. It's hilarious.
Major League Baseball now. Talking baseball now.
Baseball, a lot has happened since we last talked.
Dude, there is so much is happening. First off, the Kansas City Royals. Congratulations to our pal Max Reaper and the guys over at Royals Report, and to all the Kansas City Royal fans. The Royals, for the first time in 30 years, are the world champions of baseball. Christian Colon becomes history because his first at-bat of the postseason of the World Series was a go-ahead RBI in the game-winning game, or in the series-clinching game, I should say. He's the only player to ever do that. So the first guy to do it, the only guy to do it. Just one hell of a World Series played by the Royals. The thing about it to me that really caught my eye was every time the Mets thought they had the Royals on the ropes, the Royals always countered and came back with a right hook. And that was the most impressive thing to me. They always had answers for everything the Mets did.
Yeah, they really did. And the crazy part about it is that they came back quite a bit in the late innings.
Especially the last game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were down by 2 in the 9th. Or was it 3? And they tie it up. And then it goes another, 3 innings, 4 innings, and they score like 5 runs. They just had the stamina and the bats, and you didn't see them panic, which for a relatively young team is surprising. They played a very smart World Series. And I got to be honest with you, I thought the Mets would put up a better fight.
I thought so too, but then again, it just seemed like at some point in time, the magic was going to run out with the Mets. And I'm not sure if that was the case here, if the Royals just were. I mean, the Royals were just a better team. First and foremost, absolutely. They were just a better team. The Mets had a lot of things go right for them to get to the World Series. Jerry's Familia, I probably pronounced his first name wrong, but I know that the closer for the Mets becomes the first pitcher ever to blow 3 saves in the World Series. I mean, that right there should tell you there's just something about this Royals team. They're very resilient. Backs against the wall. They don't give up. They don't give in. They just seem to have the right combination of players at the right time, which is all that matters in the World Series. I mean, you don't have to be the greatest team out there. You just have to be the hottest team, the best team at the right time. And that's what it was. I mean, the Royals on paper were the best team all season. So, it's always cool to see the best team all season end up getting the World Series victory. But, I'm sure the Mets can come back. I don't believe they'll re-sign Yoenis Cespedes, which is something we'll talk about in just a couple minutes. But they certainly can rally around their young pitching talent and their young rotation to either maybe supplement their lineup in terms of, you trade a guy like Matt Harvey away to get a bunch of young bats to fill your lineup to make it deeper, or you just continue to build around your young pitching staff with guys like Matt Harvey, Noah Syndergaard. Excuse me. I just completely went blank there for a second. Steven Matz, Noah Syndergaard. I'm forgetting the other guy's name. I know there's Matt Harvey and then the other guy. I'm just completely shot right now. But you get the point. They have a lot of young talent, a lot of young pitching.
They got some absolute flamethrowers.
It's amazing how they've done it too.
Yeah, and I feel bad for Matt Harvey because he was leading the entire game, the final game, and he wanted it. Like, he went back out there in the ninth, and they should not have let him go back out there.
Well, he insisted. I was going to say he insisted on going out there. The other guy missed the rotation, by the way. Jake DeGrom. I apologize.
Yeah, no, he absolutely did insist it. And you want to see that passion in your players, but as a manager, you need to know when to temper it and then bring it back a little bit, because that's really the Royals got a couple good hits. They got that RBI double, and then that was it. They made a switch. They were able to tie it up and go into extra innings, and that was all she wrote.
Like I said, I think the Mets may not be back next season, but they'll be a very good baseball team next season. Terry Collins signs a 2-year extension. He did say he coached too much with his heart and not enough with his gut, and that was being the Matt Harvey thing. Example 1A, judge and jury. The example 1A presented to the court, going with the heart and not the gut, was letting Matt Harvey go out in the ninth, but he's pitched great. Why not? And I love the memes that go around too, because obviously they say that they talk about it being Gotham. They say Matt Harvey, you either live long enough to be the hero, or you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. Yeah. That's that game right there in a nutshell. Perfect analogy for that game. Speaking of the National League East, the Washington Nationals. As I mentioned on the podcast last week, they're likely going to hire Bud Black. They announced their report that they were going to hire Bud Black. Deal was set to be done. Well, here's the problem. The Washington National front office, known to be fickle with hiring managers and how much they want to pay managers, apparently lowballed Bud Black, offered him a 1-year, $1.6 million deal, unconfirmed, but those were the reports, and he turned it down. He wanted more money, more security long term. So the front office turns to Cincinnati Reds ex-manager Dusty Baker. Now, I think it's a very good hire for that team, but does this show maybe the front office in Washington doesn't really know what they're doing?
It's very possible at this point.
I mean, they flip-flopped, They flip-flopped on the manager. Bud Black's no pushover, neither is Dusty Baker, but obviously they had their choice, and then they tried to lowball him. It didn't work out. And they bring Dusty Baker in after they almost brought Dusty Baker in 2 years ago before they hired Matt Williams, which we all saw worked out for a season. But, I mean, it's to the point now where they're talking about John Papelbon's going to come back, and we all saw what happened last year with John Papelbon and Bryce Harper. Apparently they're trying to be friends now. And it just doesn't seem like the type of place that's going to that's going to be good for business. Like, baseball is just not going to be the number one priority out there. I mean, maybe Dusty Baker comes into camp and they click and they get it together and they run to the World Series and win it. I don't know. But to me right now on paper, it does not seem like a good place to be.
Yeah, it is a shame because they're such a good young squad. They have some very big talent. And hey, listen, Ryan, just because I try to choke you in the dugout doesn't mean we can't be friends. That's all I'm saying.
Sorry, I was in the middle of chugging a bottle of water as you were talking. So yeah, that I understand that. I do understand that, but we all know how John Papelbon can be a flaming douche pile. So maybe he deserves to not be there, but who knows? Maybe they'll make that in further in the offseason. The offseason starts in a couple days. Free agency does at least. So we'll see. Maybe someone decides to move for Papelbon, but it just at some point in time you have to do something. You have to make a move and try to win, because Harper, Strasburg, they're not going to be cheap for very long.
No.
So you got to try to win before they start getting expensive, because once they start getting expensive, it's going to be a lot harder to be all around good for cheap, and we all know they're cheap.
Yeah, the front office needs to figure something out, because they have all the talent in the world, and we just saw them implode last season.
A lot of people picked them to win the World Series this year.
Yeah.
And they didn't even make it out of the East. So that's just an impressive collapse for sure from the Washington National franchise.
Absolutely. It's a shame.
Now, speaking of another team that was really hot this season, the Toronto Blue Jays have some shakeup in the front office. General manager Alex Anthopoulos was offered a 5-year contract extension. He turned it down. He is leaving the franchise. And in turn, the Blue Jays name Tony LaCava. I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce it. We'll go with LaCava. Tony LaCava. He's the general manager. He's been with the Toronto franchise since 2002. Mark Shapiro, the ex-GM of the Indians, is now the president of baseball operations, and apparently his laissez-faire, let it be kind of attitude. We'll keep things on the cheap. We'll develop our own guys and go from there. And Alex Anthopoulos says, well, let's take our guys, use them as currency, and get better quicker. Apparently their two philosophies didn't mesh very well, and Anthopoulos had the out because his contract was up. And instead of re-signing and being in a bad situation, he's deciding to walk and potentially go somewhere else. So you don't blame the guy for sure, because he did a really good thing with the Blue Jays this season. And it'll be interesting to see what the Blue Jays do after in this offseason and then going into next season. But I'd have to assume that Anthopoulos ends up somewhere else, if not this year, sometime very soon.
Well, yeah, you would think so. I mean, during the break, they made some changes, they made some trades, and they came back a team on a mission, and he was obviously, one of the key components, one of the architects of that. And so I think any ball club would probably want someone like them, like him, in their front office. So I can't imagine he's not going to land somewhere.
He's a smart baseball mind, and those are not – they're very few and far between in the world of baseball. So I would assume he probably will find a job somewhere very soon. Speaking of finding jobs, the Miami Marlins officially hire ex-Dodger manager Don Mattingly, which is an interesting hire for sure. I think that he'll may not be good out of the gate, but it'll certainly be a rebuilding process. The rebuilding process in Miami seems to be going in a direction now. It may not be the right direction, but it's a direction, and for them, that's amazing, because usually they don't have a direction. They just kind of float around idly and just do whatever they think is right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does with that ball club. I mean, I feel like with the Dodgers, it was another one. He had a bunch of talent and could only get them so far.
Well, like we said, the expectations in Los Angeles were absolutely ridiculous.
Well, they were. So going into an organization where there's probably very little expectations and maybe having a couple good seasons will be a good step in the right direction.
Well, he's got a bevy of young talent. Giancarlo Stanton leading that charge, I guess, if you want to call it that. It'll be interesting to see what he does in Miami and how much power he has in Miami, but it's not a bad spot for a guy like Don Mattingly to be, because you know what? It might even be a situation where he can go lay low for a couple years and a headline job comes open. I mean, like, say, for instance, we know how I'm just going to put this out there. We know how the Yankees love ex-Yankees. And we know the Yankees love Marlins because obviously Joe Girardi was the Marlins manager. So what's not to say the Yankees decide to do away with Joe Girardi the next couple of years? Who do you think they're going to call?
Don Mattingly.
You got to call Donnie Baseball. But hey, I'm just throwing crap at a wall and seeing if it sticks. So the San Diego Padres are set to hire Arizona Diamondback third base. I don't believe he has any professional coaching experience in Major League Baseball. I know he doesn't, but a very interesting outside the box hire for the Padres.
Yeah, you started to say his name, and then you went blank.
Andy Green.
There you go. It literally was like, they're set to hire. Then you came back. And I was like, all right. That's
weird. Yeah, I hope we don't have a lot of that throughout the podcast. It might happen.
That's the first one I've heard.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure it doesn't happen. The Boston Red Sox pick up the option on pitcher Clay Buchholz, who had a 7-7 record last season, 3.26 ERA. He was very good past April. He won't be the ace next year. The Red Sox are set to fix that because they made a big mistake letting John Lester go, as we now know. But Buchholz is the guy who is injury prone, but when he's good, he's very, very, very good. So it'll be interesting to see. I keep saying it'll be interesting to see, but that's really all I have right now because it's November and baseball starts in February. So right. A lot of hypotheticals right now we're talking about. It'll be great to see Buchholz come back and be strong next season and help the Red Sox become a playoff team again. But I'm not so sure Clay Buchholz and healthy are ever going to be in the same sentence. Healthy for a full season, I'm not sure if he can do it, honestly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And last thing in baseball before we move over to some free agent talk, the Philadelphia Phillies buy out Cliff Lee's contract. He didn't pitch in 2015. Now, Lewis, do you think there's anything left in the tank for Cliff Lee, or may this be the end for him?
I don't think there's anything left in the tank. It might be time for him to call it a career.
I mean, he had a torn up elbow. He got it fixed. He rehabbed all that stuff, but I would think someone might take a shot on him because if Cliff Lee, if you're the Padres and you sign Cliff Lee to a 1-year deal worth $5 million, and he comes out and pitches 500 baseball but has a 3.5 ERA, you could deal him with the deadline for something nice. So I would think maybe that happens, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not sure what he'll bring to the table. I'm not sure what he'll do for you, but Cliff Lee's Cliff Lee until otherwise noted. I mean, we saw what happened with Roy Halladay, where he was hurt, and we said, maybe he's not over. Maybe he can come back and be Roy Halladay again, and it never happened. So, major elbow injuries are bad, obviously, but they're even worse when you're older. It's a lot harder to rehab and come back from it. But then again, for every scenario, there's an outlier. Maybe Cliff Lee's the guy who will buck the trend and come back and be a decent pitcher again for a couple more seasons before he hangs him up.
We'll find out.
Now, moving over to a free agent list, I want to talk about a couple big names, and maybe we can try to predict or just discuss where we think these guys are going to end up. First off, biggest free agent fish in the market, starting pitcher Zach Greinke. He went 19-3 last season, 7.5 wins above replacement. He went 19-3 with a 1.66 ERA. He opted out of the last couple years of his deal. I think it was $72 million to get a bigger deal. I think there's no way he doesn't end up back in Los Angeles, but I do believe we may see a bidding war with a couple teams to try to kick up his salary just a little more. But like I said, if the Dodgers are serious about winning now, they need Zach Greinke in that rotation.
Well, yeah, it's kind of hard. I think it's weird that he's opting out of his final 3 years. You got to maximize it when you can. He just came off one of the greatest seasons we've seen in a long time. Why not? That's okay. True. I mean, $71 million is still a lot of money to walk away from. And he'll probably get larger money if he lands somewhere. And having a 1.66 ERA is obviously very awesome. And that's the lowest since 1995 when Gray Maddox had a 1.63 ERA. So he's going to land somewhere nice. And someone is going to throw him a ton of money. I believe, obviously, you got teams who need some good pitching, so he might stay with the Dodgers. They might rearrange that contract, make him richer. You have the San Francisco Giants. That's a division rival right there. Why wouldn't you want to take away?
That was a lot. That was one of the names that kept popping up every time I looked up and read about Greinke, heard about Greinke. A lot of people said the Giants probably will be interested in him.
Well, yeah, I mean, why not take away one of your division rivals' best pitcher? I can see it happening. Maybe the Boston Red Sox. The Boston Red Sox starting the rotation last season. Well, the season has just ended. Was ranked 24th in the majors with a 4.39 ERA. So that might be some place that throws him a lot of money. And
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Greinke is the guy the Red Sox are going for. But I'll talk a little more about that later.
I'm just saying some of the places it might happen.
Oh, I got you.
The New York Yankees. Hey, why not? They're always
you never know.
Big names on the market. So,
like I said, I think Greinke stays in Los Angeles, but I think a guy who will get a lot more suitors, David Price, the next guy on the list. He went 18-5 combined last season between Detroit and Toronto, a 2.45 ERA, but he had a 1-2 record with a 6.17 ERA in the postseason. But the big thing about David Price, there is no draft pick compensation attached to him because he was traded at the trade deadline. So I think you've got Boston, you've got Toronto, you've got Los Angeles, all teams that could be in the bidding for him. Toronto or Los Angeles almost acquired him at the deadline, reportedly. Toronto, obviously, because of what he did in Toronto, they would want to bring him back. And then a team like the Red Sox, as you mentioned, because the pitching staff was bad. They said they're not going to go out and get an ace, but they're going to go out and get a top guy, which I don't really know the difference at this point because, it's all smoke and mirrors. Like I said, it's November. But David Price could be the guy, certainly, who could anchor the top of that rotation and certainly stabilize things in Boston. But I think David Price is going to be one of the more interesting free agents this offseason to follow.
Yeah, the Blue Jays, I don't know if they'd want to try to lose someone like him. I mean, they're going to get hurt pretty hard in free agency. And I believe 3 members of their starting rotation are going to be leaving or will be free agents. So that could be very devastating.
Well, I know that they just extended R.A. Dickey, so I'm not sure if that was one of the guys you were talking about, but he was just his option was picked up for next season.
Okay, all right.
So that's at least good for them. I might have picked up the option on Jose Bautista, I think.
I know Mark Burley's retiring, isn't he?
I think so. I think Mark Burley's hanging him up.
I mean, he's 36 years old.
Yeah.
Might be time.
I'm losing you. I'm gonna try to talk for a second because you're cut out, so I'm gonna give you a second to let your computer kind of readjust, and I'll just move on to the next name here, so we can kind of get trucking through this list. Kind of we're taking a little time here. Jason Hayward, I think there's a possibility he could end up with a team like the Cubs, who need a little more pop in their lineup, a little more. Good defense, good average. That's what Jason Hayward brings to the table. He 293 average, 13 homers, 6.5 wins above replacement last year. A very interesting name out there on the market right now, officially a free agent, is outfielder Alex Gordon. Obviously, the two teams that I've seen consistently linked are Kansas City naturally and the Cubs also kind of naturally because they need the help. He was a 271 hitter last year, 13 homers. He had a 241 average. In the 2015 postseason. Now, Lewis, do you see a guy like Alex Gordon leaving Kansas City after winning the World Series, or do you think that he may have, although they won the World Series, it's such a good team that he may want to stay for the long run?
Well, here's the problem, and you see it every once in a while. You have these guys who are going to be obviously hot in the free agent market and who will go where the money is. I would prefer someone like Alex Gordon to stay in town, because you did just win a World Series and you're probably going to be in the contention for another one next year. So I would imagine that you'd want to stay around. But once again, the Royals, they're another team. They're going to have several free agents, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Another big name that the Chicago Cubs are linked to, and rightfully so. I mean, he's a damn good player. Pitcher Jordan Zimmerman of the Washington Nationals. Red Sox, Nationals, Cubs all linked to him through rumors all over the interwebs. 13-10 last year with a 3.66 ERA, a guy who can certainly be the anchor on a pitching staff. With the Cubs, he would add more depth. With the Red Sox, he would be the anchor. With the Nationals, he would anchor with Steven Strasburg. But I think Jordan Zimmerman is more likely to be a guy the Red Sox are interested in and go for, not only because of the cheaper price tag, but just the type of pitcher he is. The Red Sox have been bitten a lot in the past with big free agent deals with big name players. They may shy away from a David Price to go out for a more of a sure thing like a Jordan Zimmerman. So I certainly expect a guy like him to be in Boston over a guy like David Price. But hey, it's the offseason. Crazier things have happened. But like I said, if I was a betting man, I would say probably Jordan Zimmerman at this point in time for the Boston Red Sox.
Well, maybe, but you're a Boston fan, so of course you want to see a consistent pitcher show up there.
Hey, I'm just thinking logically, man. Like you should know this by now. We've done this podcast long enough where I can put my allegiances aside, and if something makes sense for someone, that's just the truth. That's how I tell it.
Okay.
If it was the Yankees, I would say the same damn thing. Like if it made sense for them, I wouldn't BS you, man. I would tell you the truth. I don't have time for that crap. I only have a limited amount of time to podcast every single week. I'm not going to sit here and fill your microphone or your headphones up with some garbage for no reason, you know? Speaking of another guy that was linked to the Red Sox and a bunch of other teams at this point, Johnny Cueto, 11-13 this season with a 4.4 ERA, but he went 2-1 with a 5.40 ERA in the postseason. There's some concerns about his elbow. Not sure if that's gonna scare some teams away, or maybe it'll cost him some cash on the open market. But that's another big name to keep an eye on. Another name, one name we haven't heard a lot about because he was in San Diego last year, but still a very important player, Justin Upton. There were some concerns about his consistency, but he still remains a big bat. He had 26 home runs last year, batted .251 in San Diego. I saw a couple rumors out there that the Orioles might be interested in him because the Orioles may lose a couple big free agents, have to put a bat back in that lineup. We'll see how that one works out. But speaking of big bats, Mr. Big Bat himself, Yoenis Cespedes. He's likely not back with the Mets. He's going to want a ton of money. They're talking $100 million plus easily. He batted .291 with 35 home runs combined between the Tigers and the Mets. He only went 3 for 20 in the World Series, but there were some thoughts and some rumors and some rumblings that he may have been injured. He took a pitch off the hand in the NLCS, and a lot of people thought that was affecting him in the World Series. Certainly not a very good time to get hurt, but things happen. Unfortunately, you can't control that. But Yoenis Cespedes is still expected to get a massive, massive deal. Not sure where. But anybody who's really a serious contender or seriously wants to upgrade their lineup, Yoenis Cespedes is probably the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, he swings a big bat. He's a good left fielder. If you need a power hitter on your team, you might as well go with him. It'll be interesting to see what kind of money he generates. I'm sure it's going to be a lot.
In talking about getting a lot of money and big bats, not so much of a sexy name, but first baseman Chris Davis of the Baltimore Orioles batted, let's see here, .262 last season, 47 runs batted in the year before, 196, 26 home runs the year before that, 286 with 138 RBIs, 53 home runs. He could be a guy I see sticking in the American League strictly because he can play first base, he can play the outfield, but he also can be a designated hitter. And if he can continue to hit at that clip, at that pace, he'll be very valuable to a team for a very long time. I'm not necessarily sold he ends up back in Baltimore just because of the amount of money he's probably going to get,
right?
Which, like I said, would be a reason why they bring a guy like Justin Upton in a little younger. But, everything is so fluid at this point in time that, Chris Davis could end up in Baltimore. He could end up somewhere else. It's just the roll of the die at this point. But The last guy I want to mention, which it seems like it's a foregone conclusion at this point where he'll end up, but John Lackey, last year 13-10, a 2.77 ERA, 8-5 with a 3.11 career postseason record. A lot of people, a lot of people have linked him to the Chicago Cubs. Now, you ask why? It's a very simple answer. First off, the Chicago Cubs need depth in that rotation. They need veteran depth in that rotation. They need playoff depth in that rotation. Also, Theo Epstein was the guy who signed John Lackey to the Boston Red Sox when he was injured, when he had a bum elbow. He gets his elbow fixed, ends up in St. Louis. Now he's a free agent, and why wouldn't Theo Epstein want to take a shot on John Lackey, a guy who's revitalized his career after he had his elbow put back together? It seems like a match made in baseball heaven.
Yeah, the Cubs, they could definitely benefit from a veteran like him. I think if you look at their short stint in the playoffs this year, they could have used someone like him to help them maybe win another game or two.
Well, and you think that at this point in time, if the Cubs are serious about making the next step,
right,
go out and get a guy like John Lackey, make that rotation a little harder to beat. So when you have a best of 5, you're going to face Arrieta, Lester, Lackey. In a best of 7, you'll face him twice. So
right.
That's not bad at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. I would take that lineup.
Now it's time. I love it when we don't have an actual podcast and we just do things straight through. It's always kind of clunky, which is whatever. But we're going to talk football now.
Let's talk football.
I'm going to run down the news really quick because there's a lot to talk about, and I'm really excited to get to the news about the playoffs, the midseason reset, because obviously Week 8 was last week. We're headed on to Week 9. So we can look back and we talk about, the best players and where everybody sits. But first, we got to talk about some news. Dallas Cowboys running back Joseph Randle, likely to be suspended due to an off-season domestic violence allegation. He goes AWOL midweek and ends up getting cut by the franchise. Not good for him, but, I don't even know if the Cowboys really had any logistical reason to keep him at this point because he was injured. Like I said, showed up missing, has a suspension coming. His value to the team is not much. Maybe he gets a shot somewhere else, but right now, especially with a domestic violence allegation, like, dude, just go away.
Right. Yeah.
Don't go away mad. Just go away.
Go away. Right. Exactly. I have nothing really to say. I mean, yeah.
That's fair. That's fair with me. I mean,
you got a chance to play on a good team. Well, if they have all the parts, and you do something stupid like that, and then you go missing for a couple of days, you don't give them any option.
Yeah, they weren't even sure if the AWOL was injury based or if it was. They assumed it was because of the suspension that he disappeared for a couple of days, but you don't do that. You have a job, you have a responsibility. Don't disappear like a jackass.
Yep.
Last week, Miami defensive end Cameron Wake tore his Achilles tendon. Not good news at all for them. I believe he's like 34, so it's always very difficult for guys his age to come back. He's one of the best pass rushers we have in the game, or we have seen in the game, I should say. Speaking of injuries, Indianapolis Colts quarterback Andrew Luck said to be playing through fractured ribs and a previously disclosed shoulder injury. So that would explain a lot. It just inability to put zip on the ball. Not good on the Colts for hiding it if this is really true, but. If anything, this tells you that the Indianapolis Colts need to recommit to Andrew Luck and get him a better line, get him more protection, because it's hard as hell to throw the ball with the little amount of protection they're getting him. And if Andrew Luck is your franchise quarterback, you need to take care of him. Don't treat him like he's some schmuck that you picked up in free agency, to be a ringer. Like, this guy is talented. He's a smart football player, but you're forcing him to make decisions super quick that are causing him, even one of the smartest players in the league, to make dumb decisions. So you got to give him some more time in that offense. If not, it's insanity. You're just gonna expect the same. You're gonna get the same result. You try to change it. You're just gonna keep getting the same exact thing every single time.
Yeah, no, you said it pretty well.
Thank you. I try. Baltimore wide receiver Steve Smith tears his Achilles tendon. There was rumors that he was, well, there wasn't rumors. It was confirmed. He said he was going to retire after the season. Potential rumors of him being dealt by the deadline. And, I mean, a lot of people don't believe he's going to retire off this. He might come back and try to play another season just to retire on his own terms. Hopefully he does that because he's one of the most exciting guys to watch in football, on and off the field. So hopefully he recovers well and comes back. A lot of injuries this week for sure. I don't know what the deal is, but a lot of injuries, a lot of bad news to talk about. Pittsburgh Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell likely out for the season with a torn MCL, and Chicago running back Matt Forte out roughly a month or so with an MCL sprain. The Le'Veon Bell injury did not look good. It looked a lot worse than it was. So, I mean, it's at least good it was only an MCL, but it did not look very good on TV. When he rolled over and his leg flopped over with him, I had to shut it off. It was disgusting. New York Jets quarterback Ryan.
That disgusting.
No, I mean, it just I was fine with the injury until the end of the play where he stopped and went to roll, and his leg kind of didn't come with him, and then it just flopped over.
Yeah,
but that's what got me.
You know what gets me? So I now need to get another free. I now need to get another running back on my fantasy football team.
It happens. I actually picked up right after the injury happened. I went and picked up D'Angelo Williams because my team is liquid garbage at this point in time. The New York Jets quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick, Fitzpatrick of 1,518 yards, 11 touchdowns this season, has a torn thumb ligament in his non-throwing hand. There has been no update on his status this week that I've seen. I would assume he doesn't play this week and Geno Smith starts, but a very big blow to the New York Jets playoff hopes, because when Geno Smith came in, guys, he wasn't very good, and he continues to not be very good. And if Geno Smith is playing quarterback for a few weeks, the Jets can most likely kiss their playoff hopes goodbye, because even with a serviceable Geno Smith, the Jets aren't going to be very good.
I believe Fitzpatrick's going to start on Sunday.
I would like to see how long that one lasts.
Yeah, I think it came out today. I think he said that it's. I thought I saw something on ESPN not that long ago. He practiced fully today, and he's been named the starter for the matchup with the Jaguars on Sunday.
I'm going to check this out really quick just to confirm. I believe you, but I just want to double check because this is what happens working during the day has done to me. He said, it says he will start despite a torn thumb ligament. He said on his thumb, it's painful enough to get me out of changing diapers. That's the one positive about it. We'll see what happens. I mean, it could be a thing where it affects his game. I mean, I don't see why it would affect his game because, it's his non-throwing hand, but crazier things have happened for sure.
Right.
But if he's not Ryan Fitzpatrick, then the Jets are in a lot of trouble.
Who that?
A couple more things before we move over to the mid-season reset. The Denver Broncos make some waves. They're struggling offense. I mean, they're undefeated, so it's not too badly struggling, but struggling enough. They go out and acquire tight end Vernon Davis from the San Francisco 49ers, the only super big move of the trade deadline. Vernon Davis had 194 receiving yards this season, no touchdowns. But that's coming from San Francisco, which just so happened to bench Colin Kaepernick for Blaine Gabbert this week. If you wanted to know how things were going in San Francisco, not very good, with a side of, holy hell, this team sucks. Colin Kaepernick probably will not be the quarterback next season. I mean, I should say I don't see why he would be the quarterback next season, because they owe him a ton of money, and clearly if they're starting Blaine Gabbert over you, just start packing your bags, man. It's not going to be good.
Well, the thing with Kaepernick is now that he's a couple seasons in, people can game plan for the type of quarterback he is. But I can't put all the blame on Fitzpatrick. I mean, that team.
You mean Kaepernick?
what did I say? Fitzpatrick?
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, Kaepernick. That team in general is just not that good. So I can't put all the blame on him.
I mean, the offensive, once Harbaugh left, the offense changed so much, the team changed so much. With Harbaugh there, it seemed like they had a great offense built with Greg Roman that really played to Kaepernick's strengths. I mean, then again, it might have just, I don't know if it was all Greg Roman, it was all Jim Harbaugh, or if it was a little bit of both, but I think Colin Kaepernick has a future in the league somewhere. I just don't think it's in San Francisco.
Probably.
And who knows? Maybe they fired Jim Tomsula this offseason and they bring someone in who really likes Colin Kaepernick and wants him to be the quarterback and installs a system that plays to Kaepernick's strengths, because we saw them almost win the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. I mean, you know, it wasn't a fluke for sure.
Right. No, I agree. So we'll see.
The Indianapolis Colts fire offensive coordinator Pep Hamilton. Rob Chudzinski takes over. This looks like just a take a shot in the dark and see if it works type of move. They're 20th. The Colts are 20th in scoring offense, 16th in yards per game. Again, I don't, until you get a better offensive line, that team is not going to get much better offensively, because you want the quarterback to be more effective and not make so many mistakes, but what have you done to help him out?
Right.
Also, one last thing before we move on to the picks and the midseason recap, reset, whatever you want to call it. The San Diego Chargers lose wide receiver. I just completely blanked on his name. Oh, goodness gracious, it's getting late. Allen. They lost their wide receiver, Keenan Allen. There we go. Sorry, it took me a second. The San Diego Chargers lose wide receiver Keenan Allen to a lacerated kidney.
That's not good.
That sounds incredibly painful.
A little bit.
Just a little, yeah. Now moving over to the NFL midseason reset. I'm going to try to power through this one really quick. The playoff picture is as follows. In the AFC, Denver, New England are 7-0. Cincinnati 7-0. It's Denver, New England, Cincinnati 1-2-3. The 4 seed is Indianapolis at 3-5. 5 seed is Oakland at 4-3, and the 6 seed is the Jets at 4-3. In the hunt, Pittsburgh 4-4. The Bills 3-4. Miami's 3-4, and Houston is 3-5. Only still in the hunt because of the division title potential taking over the Indianapolis Colts. Is there anything right now in the AFC at this point that has surprised you after 8 weeks of football?
Yeah, actually. I expected the Bills to be playing better than they are.
I think a lot of us did.
I find it interesting that they've struggled as bad as they have, and that their defense has been figured out so quickly. But it's really not anything different. The coach, Mr. Rex, he's been in the league for a while. People be able to game plan for him. They kind of know what he's going to do. Even in a new system, it's kind of the same old. So I don't know if it's so much the Bills or the play calling on the sidelines.
I think with the Buffalo Bills, a lot of the problem is injuries. First off, penalties, not being able to keep a cool head. Injuries again. Injuries have been gigantic. No excuse, but they've been gigantic. But defensively, I feel like they probably tried to change the system too much and tried to get too cute, because we saw last year oh, goodness gracious. I keep burping. I cannot stop this. We saw what they did with Mike Patton, and then when Mike Patton left, we saw what they did with Jim Schwartz. And then they bring in, I think Donnie Henderson or whatever his name. I'm blanking. The defensive coordinator of the Bills when Rex Ryan came in, and it's just they change so much. They try to be very cute with things when. Right. Look at the talent that you have on the defensive side of football. Of the football. I mean, it's great, but it's almost like they're trying too hard. Right. Then again, I bring injuries up one more time. Aaron Williams on the defensive side of things, the essentially the general of the safeties and the cornerbacks and kind of the deep part of the defense. Like he and he screwed his neck up. He might be back later this season, but that was a big loss. And then Tyrod Taylor being out, LaShawn McCoy not being healthy, Carlos Williams getting hurt, Sammy Watkins getting hurt. It's just the list goes on, and the list goes on, and the list goes on, and it doesn't stop. But at this point, the Bills seem fairly healthy. They could go on a run. I mean, they play 2 games in 4 days. They play the Dolphins, they play the Jets. If they can beat those 2 teams and get to 5-4, they certainly could be sitting pretty in the wild card race. I mean, they play the Patriots after that on Monday Night Football, but the schedule gets a lot easier for the Bills, and it's gonna if it comes down to 1 win or 1 loss, that Jaguars loss is probably gonna kick them in the ass real hard. But then again, it may not matter because they still may make the wild card. But the one thing I would say, the 2 things that are surprising to me the 3 things at this point that are surprising to me in the AFC. Denver being 7-0 with a mediocre offense,
right?
Cincinnati being 7-0 just because that's amazing, and the Oakland Raiders actually kind of playing some good football.
They are.
In the NFC, Carolina 7-0, Green Bay 2. Carolina's the 1 seed at 7-0. Green Bay 2, the 2 seed at 6-1. Arizona 3rd. 6-2. The Giants at 4-4 are the 4 seed. Atlanta 6-2 with the 5 seed. Minnesota 5-2 with the 6 seed. St. Louis at 4-3. Seattle at 4-4. New Orleans at 4-4 are in the hunt. I would say this whole thing surprises me. The whole NFC surprises me. Carolina being 7-0 and being the 1 seed, that's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Arizona being 6-2 and having a couple game lead. I mean, Arizona being good doesn't surprise me, but Seattle not being good surprises me.
Right.
The Giants being 4-4, we kind of expected the East to be a tire fire, so that is what it is. The Falcons being 6-2, very, very surprising. And the Vikings being 5-2, kind of surprising. But a lot of people, not we all, but a lot of people had a feeling the Vikings were going to be better this year and maybe take that next step. And right now, I mean, it looks like, the NFC could be very, very stacked and a lot of fun to watch as these next 8 weeks progress in the season.
I agree with you.
Or the next 9 weeks, 8 games per team, but 9 weeks obviously because 17 weeks, 16 games.
Right.
Send all your hate mail to the JC Money because I don't want to hear it. Moving over to some awards because we're running way long today on the podcast. It feels like, but some awards. First off, Rookie of the Year. I think Todd Gurley's the Rookie of the Year at this point in time. 4 straight starts with at least 128 rushing yards. He had 575 yards and 3 touchdowns in 5 games this season. If he keeps it up, I see no reason why he would be the Rookie of the Year, why he shouldn't be Rookie of the Year. Did you have any pick for that?
Yeah, I also had Todd Gurley. Same reasons. 4 straight 120-yard games. But, the first Rams player to do it since Eric Dickerson in 1984, averaging 6.1 yards a carry. He's really needed no time to jump into that system and show why, he is one of the top running backs in the NFL right now, even as a rookie. So I think he probably has a good chance of winning that Rookie of the Year status.
Now, moving over to Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year, who do you have?
That's a tough one. I believe Offensive Player of the Year at this point will probably be the same person I have for MVP at this point. And I hate to say it, but it would probably be Tom Brady. He's got 2,400 yards at this point. His passer rating is 115.8. He's got 20 touchdowns with 1 interception. How can you not go with him?
I have Brady as well for Offensive Player of the Year at the moment. I have a different MVP, but for a different reason. But, I mean, we've seen it before where the best offensive player doesn't win the MVP. That's kind of what I'm going with right now, but we'll talk about that in a second. But Brady, hands down, best offensive player on the field this season.
Yeah, I agree.
As for defensive player, who do you have?
Defensive player of the year, I'm having a harder time coming up with someone who I think is good. I mean, there's a lot of pretty good defensive players right now, but if you look at someone like DeQuell Jackson from Indy, he's got 92 tackles on a year. I mean, that's impressive.
I went personally with sacks. It's very difficult to judge defensive player of the year. I mean, unless you're like J.J. Watt last year, where you caught 4 touchdowns or whatever. You had interception return for touchdown, 20 sacks, stuff like that. So I went with Chandler Jones.
Yeah, Chandler Jones.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I went with Chandler Jones because
8.5 sacks.
8.5 sacks, tied for the league lead. But that Patriots defense has been magnificent this season.
Right.
Yeah, that's the one thing about the Patriots. That's the one thing about the Patriots this year that really is kind of scary. Not only are they playing good offensively, but they're playing very good defensively. And if that continues, we may be seeing the Patriots in the Super Bowl again. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
That's true. Well, I mean, you got to look at someone like Charles Woodson also. I mean, he's got 5 interceptions so
it's
far
possible.
in the year, and that's impressive.
Especially at his age.
Right, exactly.
For Coach of the Year, I chose Gary Kubiak. Now, this is interesting because it really could be Wade Phillips, but obviously it's a head coach, so I went Gary Kubiak. They have the best defense in the league, first in pass defense, fourth in rush defense. They're 7-0 right now. I feel like he really coached that team up to where they are. I mean, don't get me wrong, the talent is there, the fantastic roster that they have, but again, we've seen it in sports before. You can have a great roster, but if you don't have the right guy to coach it up, there's the problem. So, like I said, you could have gone Bill Belichick, I could have gone Ron Rivera, could have gone Lovie Smith. I just completely, the head coach in Cincinnati, I just completely forgot his name.
Yeah, he's done a magnificent job.
Yeah, he's done a great job. Like I said, you could go Arizona, you could go Atlanta, you can go Minnesota, Green Bay. I mean, it'll certainly the cream will rise to the top as the season progresses for sure. But like I said, right now I've got Gary Kubiak.
Yeah, it's funny that you started out with, you could have gone with Wade Phillips, because I did go with Wade Phillips, and I know it's a departure from what people normally do, because normally the coach of the year is, the head coach. But if you look at what Wade Phillips has done with the Denver Broncos defense, a team whose defense has literally won them games to make them 7-0, I think that he should be in the running because his defensive schemes right now are awesome, and they've done a great job with those players, and the defense is all on board. And so I went with Wade Phillips.
That is not a bad selection at all, as I just mentioned.
Right.
I do want to mention that my eyes are starting to hurt, so that's fun. I do want to mention Marvin Lewis. That's the head coach of the Bengals, because I'm an idiot, and
Yes,
as of post time, it's 11:10 p.m. and I woke up at 7:30 this morning after sleeping for 5 hours, because I fell asleep on the couch last night for 2 hours till midnight, couldn't sleep till 2:30, went to bed 2:30 to 7:30, and went to work. So you can probably guess right now I'm running on like reserve of the reserve at this point.
I went to bed at around 2, woke up around 7:30, 8 o'clock to go to work.
It's tough, man.
No, yeah, I'm fine. No, I my night last night was extremely fun. You shouldn't have as much fun on a Tuesday night as I did.
It's almost illegal to have as much fun as you did, right?
Well, as the listeners know, they've heard me say I work part-time at a cigar shop where we make our own cigars. We did a event for a kickoff of the new 007 movie at the Strath Allen Hotel, and they had all the cars from the movies there. They had the hotel lit up with the 007 and Spectre signs. It was like a black tie affair. We were rolling cigars, so I chilled from 9 to 12, smoking cigars, drinking Johnny Walker Blue Label, having a great time on a Tuesday night. It was awesome.
That sounds like a good problem to have.
Yes, sir, it is.
I don't even know. I was going to try to complain or something. I got nothing. I just want to talk about the MVP of football. I've got Cam Newton. Because
That's not a bad choice.
Well, here's the thing. When I think of MVP, he has 1,523 yards, 11 touchdowns, 286 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. But here's the deal. I think of the MVP differently, I feel like, than the media does. Like, the media said, who's the MVP? Who's the best player in football? Tom Brady. Okay, I get that. But I think of it this way. If you took away player X, how good would his football team be? If you took Cam Newton off the Panthers, they would not be 7-0.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. You're absolutely correct. I mean, they would not be 7-0.
That's just how I feel. Yeah, I mean, that's just in a nutshell. Who do you have?
I got Tom Brady.
You did say that. Yeah, I'm sorry. You did say that.
Good. All good.
Yeah, I had a feeling like Cam Newton is just, it's a year where it'll probably be like Brady Newton, and there'll be a lot of talk about Brady and Newton, but it might be the year where Cam Newton can edge out Tom Brady just because Brady's been there before. We know how good Tom Brady is, and
right.
Cam Newton is doing something we haven't seen.
I think if you look at it in the overall scheme of things with what he's done with that team, it makes sense. But if you're looking at a player that has 11 TDs and 8 interceptions at this point versus someone who has 20 TDs and 1 interception, if you're looking at the passer rating of 78.1 versus 115.8, if you're looking at 2,400 yards versus 1,500 yards, I feel like in that scheme of things, you got to go with Brady.
Oh, absolutely.
But I understand what you're saying with Cam Newton. If you take Cam Newton off the Carolina Panthers, they're not 7-0.
I'm just going with the feels on this one, man. I'm just thinking that, Cam Newton is that team at this point in time, and it's good to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the one thing that Cam Newton has that Brady doesn't have is he's obviously a much more mobile QB.
He's got the legs.
Yeah, and you saw it several times on Monday night where if there was a busted play, he would run and get that first down and pick up, a good amount of yards after the fact. You're not going to see that with Brady.
No. When Brady runs, he runs like a dump truck.
Right, exactly. So I can see where you're coming from, and it's a very good argument.
Well, thank you.
At this point, like I said,
I think honestly, I think it's Brady, but I just wanted to make the argument for Cam Newton because I feel like that Cam Newton he deserves to be in that conversation.
Right. No, I think it's a good one. I think that's an excellent argument that you have there for.
That's why they pay me the no bucks.
That's right. Exactly. Me too.
Moving over, taking a step back now, looking at Week 8, the Pick'em. I went 11 and.
I want to throw another name out there real quick.
You throw what you want to throw out there. I'm just trying to roll the ball downhill.
Because even though I got Brady, I mean, you could even
a late entry into Lewis's MVP race.
Yeah, you could even make an argument for Carson Palmer.
Absolutely, Carson Palmer has been magnificent in Arizona, and Arizona's magnificent.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're undefeated. He's got 110.
They're 6-2.
6-2. That's right. They have 110. He's got 110.2 passer rating. He's got almost 2,400 yards. He's got 20 TDs. So if that team continues to play the way they do, he might be in the picture also.
Certainly. I mean, I don't disagree at all with you. Honestly, that's a great argument. Can it hold up? We'll see. But I mean, betting, I probably would say Brady wins MVP this year.
Oh yeah, especially if they continue the way they're going right now.
Oh, absolutely. Moving over to the Pick'em, Week 8 Pick'em. I went 11-3. Lewis, you went 10-4. John had a bad week at 8-6. So moving into Week 9, Lewis, you and I are at 75-44. John is at 67-50. We're quickly pulling away from the pack.
Yes, we are.
This week, the first game we disagree on, John and I picked Green Bay. Lewis, you picked Carolina. I sat here and talked all this good stuff about Cam Newton that I picked against him. What is my problem?
Well, here's why I went that way. They struggled against a very lackluster offense in the Denver Broncos.
But the best defense in the league in the Denver Broncos.
I was going to say, best defense in the league, but that was one of the first teams that they've played that's on that other level, in my opinion. And they struggled heavily. I believe Carolina will be able to exploit Green Bay's defense, especially with Cam Newton being a scrambling quarterback, and eke out the win.
I just think after that loss last week against Denver, Green Bay's going to want to come out and really show us that was a fluke, that that they are better than that. And I mean, it doesn't get much easier for them with the Carolina Panthers, but I just think Green Bay pulls this one out. I mean, if Carolina wins, again, it's another feather in the cap, but I'm just comfortable going Green Bay at this point.
Get it? Cool.
John has Miami. Lewis, you and I have Buffalo. I'm not sure why John picked Miami. He did not give me a reason. But after Rex Ryan gave the Bills the week off and let them rest and relax, and they came back kind of re-energized, reinvigorated with a new mindset, a new goal. Tyrod Taylor being back at quarterback. I mean, Sammy Watkins probably back in the lineup. LaShawn McCoy, 100%. I mean, it's maybe even Carlos Williams is back. And Leotis McKelvin also potentially back, maybe even playing safety. I'm not gonna bet against the Bills right now. Like they may come out and they may embarrass the Miami Dolphins at home.
Yeah, especially with Tyrod Taylor being back, and I think really that's the big a key right there. He's another one of those scrambling quarterbacks. He can throw the ball a mile. I believe that he's going to help propel the Bills to a victory.
Just has to play smarter and be I can't think. I just lost the word. This has happened so much tonight. I'm just so damn tired. He has to protect himself, and he has to be smart, and he has to take care of the football. And if he does that, they should be fine.
Yeah,
I mean, the Dolphins had big games after Dan Campbell became the interim head coach, but they had big games against bad teams. They played a good team, the Patriots, and they got their block knocked off. And hey, maybe they're not so good. The next game, John has St. Louis. Lewis, you and I have Minnesota. Obviously, I'm assuming we're picking Minnesota because they're 5-2. They've played good football, and I'm assuming John's going St. Louis because the defense has shown some signs of being very damn good. The offense can do some things as well, but I just think when the game is said and done, Minnesota takes this one and moves to 6-2.
I agree.
Last game of the weekend that we have some sort of discrepancy on, Oakland and Pittsburgh. Now, you both being you, Lewis, and then John picked Pittsburgh. I picked Oakland. Now, I understand the traveling east thing. I picked it last week with Baltimore winning over San Diego with the east travel. I said, you travel from west to east, it's bad news, or vice versa, bad news. But at this point in time, especially with the Steelers without Le'Veon Bell, I really do think that the Oakland Raiders are a better football team. And I think the Oakland Raiders can get the job done against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Call me crazy. I probably am. But I'm buying what they're selling. I'm drinking the black and silver
Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Black and gray Kool-Aid, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's right. I'm down. I'm down with the clown, man. Not with the insane clown posse. I'm down with the Oakland Raider clown, the owner who looks like a clown. I'm down with that guy. He drives a minivan and shit. Like, I don't even know what his deal is, but I'm buying it, man. Like, I'm on board. They've been so bad for a long time, and then now they're like, hey, maybe we're going to be kind of good. Whatever, 2 Just beat those Steelers so I can win the pick'em. Thanks.
They have they have shown signs of life, especially the last couple games, including 2 weeks ago when they completely surprised us. But I feel like if you look at the Steelers, it has happened time and time again with the big lughead dude that they have for their quarterback, whose name is currently slipping my mind.
Are you talking the Steelers?
Steelers, yeah.
Do you forget Ben Roethlisberger?
Thank you. That's it right there. Ben
How did you
Roethlisberger.
forget Ben Roethlisberger's name?
No idea. Maybe I was having a Ryan Wolf moment.
Great. Like I forget like names like, hey, I forgot Marvin Lewis. You're like, right. I forgot Ben Roethlisberger.
I did.
Man.
It completely slipped my mind.
What the hell are you drinking over there, man? I don't really want to know.
Nothing. Maybe that's the problem. I had 5 glasses of Johnny Walker Blue Label last night. Maybe I should be drinking some scotch right now. But whenever he comes back, his first game's normally pretty rocky. By the second game, he settles back in, and he has a phenomenal outing. And I believe that's what's going to happen. And I think that they're just going to – I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a close game. But I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to pull it off.
That's fair, man. Again, that's all that matters. You believe it, and if you believe it, I guess perception is reality or whatever they say. But, you know, I'm exhausted. It's 20 after 11 on Wednesday night. I'm going to go brush my teeth, wash my face, get my happy ass into bed. So this podcast has been fun. A lot of information to digest. I do apologize. I tried to stuff a lot in a small space, just the way your mother likes it. But, you know, there was a lot to talk about. I wanted to hit everything this week because I always feel bad if we miss something. Baseball free agency starts in a couple days. We've passed the midway point of the football season for those who care. You know, hockey's in full swing. Basketball started again. NASCAR's almost over. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. So the podcast may get a little busier the next couple of weeks. And, you know, nothing wrong with that because there's going to be weeks where we have like 5 basketball games to talk about, and that's it. So cherish it while you can. We'll be back next week, and we'll talk more sports. I'm not sure what day we'll be back, but we'll be back. Keep an eye out on Facebook, facebook.com/BLTD Podcast, twitter.com, at BLTD Sports on Twitter, I believe. I don't even remember. And my Twitter, at WolfBLTD, at MRLG Perez on Twitter. Check us out, follow us, tell us we're stupid, whatever you want to do. We're here. We're more than willing to listen to it. Yeah, we're more than willing to listen to it. But with that being said, as always, we are better live than dead.
You're not.
Thank you, Lewis, for showing up and getting the microphone to work.
Yeah, man.
Thank you to each and every single one of you. No problem. I'm glad to be here. Thanks to every single one of you who listen to the podcast. And we're doing this backwards. Who cares? We do what we want. That's what if you don't like the way it happens, get your own podcast and do it your way. Okay?
We'll bring it over to the Gear Network.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John and Dawn, the executive producers of the BLTD podcast. And with that being said, we're going to hit the bricks, man. I'm going to bed. I'm exhausted. I hope you have a great night. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the beautiful weather until it starts to snow next week or whatever. And we will talk to you again very soon. It's
supposed to be pretty mild next week.
Pretty mild. It's been 80 degrees almost today in Rochester. So
yeah, but by pretty mild, I mean it's going to be like in the 60s.
Damn. So, I'm down for that. I'm down for that. El Nino every day. Have a great night, my friends. Have a good one.
Hey Dawn, how's it going?
Living the dream. I'm actually just getting ready to do this commercial.
Oh, you mean the commercial where I tell our listeners to tune into Gear Network every week to listen to our show, Get Ready America? That one?
Yeah, John, that's the one.
They can also listen to us talk about news, sports, whatever's on our minds, that.
And a little what's on our listeners' minds, but they're just too nice to say it.
Well, that, Dawn, is a real humdinger.
Humdinger.
Come join us this and every week for Get Ready America exclusively on the Gear Radio Network.
And the Gear Network app.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I am Ryan Wolf,
it's Mr. Perez.
and I have a question for you, Perez.
What's your question?
Do you like to listen to people talk about sports?
No. Of course I like sports and listening to people talk about sports.
Well, guess what? I have the perfect solution for you.
Solution for me?
There's a podcast on this very network.
This network?
Every single week you can hear it.
Really?
New content, latest and breaking news. We talk about baseball, football, hockey, basketball, soccer, UFC, whatever you want to talk about.
So sports in general.
They talk about sports in general. You got it.
I like it.
You know the dictionary.
I like it.
Very proud of you.
Thank you.
I must say, tune in. We are better live than dead.
You're not.
Every single week. You're not going to want to miss it. Exclusively here on the Gear Radio Network.